Hello, I'm Dorene Decibus from It Begins with Ink and Paper, and this is Fun Fold Friday. Welcome, everyone, and I'm so excited that you're joining me either on the live or the replay or on my YouTube channel. So thank you for supporting my small business. Make sure that you give me a shout out, say hello, let me know that you're joining me so that I can give you a shout out back and say hello as well. So the first thing I want to just point out is that the mini catalogs have been mailed. So if you're on my mailing list, you should be getting one of these in the mail soon. You may have already gotten it today, but they are out and ready, should be ready to be delivered soon. So the mini catalog comes out the first week in September, and right after, let me see, I think it's after Labor Day. Let me just look at the date. And of course, I can't find it quickly, but I believe it's the first full week of September. So that's exciting news for us and all the great new products that are in it. So tonight I am going to be making a Peacock fun fold, and this is what the card looks like that I'm going to be making. You can see that there's a hole, a circle die cut out right in the center of the card, and that's our Peacock. It gives you a little hint of what's inside, but when you open it up, it's a surprise, and you'll find that there is much more to look at. And then, of course, we have this other fold that opens up so that you can write a message to the person who you want to see this card. So it's very cute. I like this fold, and it is very easy to do. So I'm going to use the Ink and Tiled stamp set tonight. This is one of my favorite stamp sets from the annual catalog. I just love everything about it. And we are also using the Nestled Essential dies that are from the online exclusives, and you can see that it has 3 different shapes, and the dies do nestle, so they're great. We are going to be using these 3 dies right here. We're not using the big one, but we are using the second, third, and smallest die. So those are the ones that we're going to be using. And I'm also using the stylish shapes, and I am using the 3rd die in to make our circle cut. And I chose that because I thought it was a good size to kind of highlight part of what was inside the card, but not the whole thing inside the card. So let me put these aside. I am also using for the inside the exposed brick embossing folder, and this is just a really nice 3D embossing folder that has some distressed parts to it and the brick part to it, so it's pretty cool to see in action. So let me move those out of place so that I can show you what we're going to need for tonight. So you are going to need a piece of pretty Peacock cardstock cut to 5.5 by 8.5. That will be our base. And then, like last week, we used a piece like this on the inside of our card. You're going to need a piece of basic white that is cut to 8 by 5.25, so it fits right inside the piece of pretty Peacock cardstock. You're going to need a piece of not 4, it's going to be 5 inches by 3 3/4 inches of Pool Party cardstock. And this is the piece that I embossed with the exposed bricks embossing folder. So I'll bring it up closer to the camera so that you can see what that embossed image looks like. I've already pre-embossed, just as I've already cut my tags, so that we don't waste any time with me bringing out my Stampin' Emboss machine, and it allows us to just keep going smoothly in the video. You're also going to need a piece of the inked Botanicals Designer Series paper. It goes with the inked and tiled stamp set, and I'm using this piece here. And you're going to need some another piece of the inked Botanicals cardstock. This is a 1/2 inch by 5 1/4 inches. This piece, in case I didn't mention it, I don't know if I did, measures 4 inches by 5 1/4 inches. And then you're going to need some scraps of white that we'll be using for those labels. So you're going to need that one of the second one in, 2 for the third one in, and 1 for the last one. And that's what we need. So let's do some scoring first. So this piece measures 8 inches. So we're going to want to score this in half at 4 inches. And then our piece of Pretty Peacock is 8 1/2 inches. So we're going to want to score at 4 1/4 inches. That's all the scoring you need to do. Remember, you don't need to be writing down all these measurements or coming back to the video to write down the measurements. I will be posting them in the comments at the end of the video. Okay, so I'm going to fold my piece of Pretty Peacock in half. And I'm going to take my piece of Designer Series paper, and I am going to attach that with my Stampin' Seal. Now, when I cut out the center, I'm going to have this left that I can use on a different card. And I normally put adhesive right in the middle. If I don't put adhesive in the middle, when I cut this out, I will also have a piece of Pretty Peacock paper. So it's up to you whether or not you put that piece of adhesive in the middle, so that when you cut it out, you will have 2 pieces or 1 piece to use. So there we go. The next step is to take that die and put it on the front of the card, run it through the embossing machine, and take the center out. So this is what your piece will look like after you've done that. Okay, I'm going to set this piece aside. I'll be making another card with that later. And I'm going to set this piece aside because I won't need it for this card. So I'm going to come back here to my piece of basic white cardstock, and I'm going to fold that in half, and for some reason it doesn't look as perfectly in half as I'd like to see it. So let me just bring these ends together and just score it here. So I'm going to hold those pieces down and just really get a nice score line there. That looks better. Okay, so there we go. So on the inside, I'm going to take my piece of Pool Party cardstock, and I am going to adhere it to the front of this inside card. Now, when I emboss a piece of cardstock, it really breaks up the fibers and, doesn't cause it to sit as flat as I would like it to. So I am putting a little more adhesive on it so that all of my edges will sit nice and flat against the top of this piece. There we go. And then this piece is going to go inside the card. So it's kind of like another double card, but with just a little different twist. And there we go. So now we have this all set. So now it's time to do some stamping. So before I do any stamping, I'm going to actually take this piece of Designer Series paper, and I'm just going to place it in towards the bottom of this card. I want some of the white cardstock to be showing, just to give a little something for the inside of the card. Okay, now to our labels. So the first thing I'm going to stamp, I'm going to use the Peacock ink to do the stamping. I'm going to stamp my greeting that says hello friend. So I always check out my image after I ink it up to make sure it is straight, and I can see that that is really nice. So I'm just going to line up my label, and I am going to stamp this in the center. There we go. So that part is done. Now the next part, I want to show you a little trick. So with the Peacock, I am going to take, so this is the floral stamp that I used on the front, and we're going to add a little bit of nice color with this. So I'm going to start with using my Stampin' Right marker. I'm not going to need to color in the entire stem because I'm not going to, the label is not that big, so I'm not going to need the whole thing. But I'm going to color, because I want two colors on this, I'm going to be using my markers. And then I'm going to add a little bit of dimension by using another ink pad and adding some color to the flower. And so I'm just using the brush tip to my marker. Our markers have been redesigned. They're the same fabulous brand, and you get the same type of, expectation with Stampin' Up products, but they've just been redesigned to have a shorter end here and a different tip to the fine tip side. So there is our petal pink. And now what I'm going to do, I'm going to close my Peacock so I don't get in the way. I am going to take a sponge dauber, and I'm going to go into my Flirty Flamingo, which is another pink, and I am going to add some ink to this. And I'm going to come back, and I am just going to stamp a little bit at the top. I'm going to just daub it right on. And then I'm going to take my larger label. I'm going to huff on this to re-moisten it because it's been sitting for a while. And then I am going to stamp this image onto the label. So it's kind of neat because you're not sure how much ink you've put on it, what it's going to look like. And so you can see on this there is some of that. Let me just bring it up a little bit closer. There's the Flirty Flamingos on the outside, and then right in the center is that lighter petal pink. So it gives you some nice dimension. So there is that. So we're done with the Flirty Flamingo. Now I'm going to pull out my leaf stamp, and I am going to do the same technique, but I am going to ink this up this time because I'm inking it with one color. I am going to ink this up with the Pool Party ink. And then I'm going to take another dauber, and I'm going to ink this up with the Pretty Peacock. And I'm just going to go around the top of the leaves to get some of that darker color in. It just adds, such a great dimension. So there we go with that. I'm going to move these out of the way and take one of our smaller tags. And I'm going to stamp the leaves at two different angles so that they're turning in different ways. So there we go for the first one. I forgot to huff, so I hope this comes out okay. It did. I have a little bit of, I think I'm going to turn this over because I have a little bit of ink on the side, and I don't really like that. So I'm just going to turn this one over, and I'm going to clean off my stamp, because the one thing when you're using this technique that you really have to be, understand is that you don't want to go back in and stamp the stamp without being cleaned off into the ink pad, because you're stamping in a lighter ink pad and you don't want that darker ink to stain your ink pad. So here we go again. I'm just going to stamp this up, and I don't have it. I'm going to be really careful not to get any of the ink on the edges of the stamp. If I do, I'm just going to come back and fix it. There we go. So this should be a little bit better. And there we go. And we have that beautiful two-tone image of the leaves. So let me clean this off again. And we're going to do this the same thing with the second label. Ink it up in the pool party. Make sure I'm not getting it on the edges. We'll close up the pool party and then come back with my dauber and ink up the edges of the stamp. Give it a nice huff, and this time I'm going to go in the opposite direction with the leaves. And there we go. We have our two set of leaves done and ready. All right, so now it's time to start putting this card together. So the first thing I'm going to do is just kind of lay out what I want this to look like on the inside, because that allows me to make sure everything is where I want it to be in the window. So there you go. We can see that we're going to have a little bit of see-through with the edge of the tag, but with the ribbon and the greeting, this should cover it up nicely. So I'm going to start by adding some Stampin' Seal. And I am going to place, I'm just going to center this, and in the center and a little bit away from the edge of the pool party. Do the same with this one. Try to make sure I'm keeping it even. That looks pretty good. I am going to use dimensionals on the back of my flower, just to give it a little lift. Now, because we've got so many different layers with the card on the inside and the raised image on the inside, we're really going to want to make sure we use extra postage to mail this. Okay, this is going to fit right in between, and we've got that little peekaboo of the flower. I'm going to put my greeting over here so it covers up that little bit of edge of the tag that we see. So if you're just joining me, please make sure you say hello in the comments. There we go. We have that there. And then I have this. I love this. This is the glittered organdy ribbon. And so I'm just going to go through here and make sure we've got an even amount here. And we're going to tie a bow, and that bow is also going to help with that little bit of the edge of the tag that we're seeing on the outside. So when I'm tying a bow, I like to use my tweezers to help me hold everything in place. And then I'm going to adjust it because I don't want the bow to be gigantic. Because I want it to fit in the card as well. And then I can just trim the ribbon. And you can see how now you can't really spot the edge of the tag on either side. So I also have a little bit of bling because, goodness gracious, we don't want our card to have no bling. And I'm going to be using, these are the Tinsel Gems 3-pack. And we have some Misty Moonlight, Lost Lagoon, and Fresh Freesia. So I'm going to be using this, the Lost Lagoon. And I am going to add these to the front of the card. Gives us a little bit of bling. We have the bling in the ribbon, and then we have that peekaboo surprise when we get to the inside, and of course then the inside of our card that we can write our message in. So that is it for tonight for Fun Fold Friday. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for supporting my small business. And I will be back next Friday night with another edition of Fun Fold Friday. Don't forget that I do have Simply Stamping Sunday on Sunday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And please like my Facebook page, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and join me next Friday night for another edition of Fun Fold Friday. Have a great week, everyone. Bye-bye.